European charter market. How can we sum that up in 40 minutes? I mean, let's face it, it's all become a little bit more challenging than it should be, or that's how it feels like to me as a broker. I'm surrounded by 4 gentlemen here with years of operating knowledge, broking knowledge, brokerator knowledge, new term that's come to me this week, brokerator. I'd like to hear a lot more about that. So, political challenges upon us, as they have been in the last 2 to 3 years, have brought about many more challenges for our industry than we would like to see. Primarily permitting issues, and all the things that would perhaps prevent our customers, and our customers being charter customers, owner-operators, etc., from operating with the flexibility that we've all taken for granted for so many years. And I'd like my panel here to share some of their wisdom where you think we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. So I'm going to start with one of the veterans to my left here, Philippe. Why not? For you, Philippe, what do you think? Where do you think we're at now, and where do you think we're going with the insight of where you've been? Sounds deep.
Well, I thought it was very interesting when somebody mentioned Uber, because there is a force that wants to transform this business into Uber, but then there is the passengers, the client. So we might have two directions going for the future. One is the point-to-point. Somebody who thinks it's just like a taxi, indeed. So they go from A to B, and all they want is a transport. And other people who still want the flexibility, or they have their meetings, they have their commitments, and they want an aircraft to stay with them, or to respect the schedule. That's my feeling. It's going in 2 different directions. And of course, different generations as well have different ways to see it.
But do we feel that our industry... Welcome, Glenn. Where have you been?
Sorry. Post-lunch loo break.
Couldn't get an Uber. Given the operating constraints that we have, and so Bernard, you have a massive fleet of business jets all over Europe. You effectively started out promoting yourself as an air taxi service. How are you finding the ability to be agile with your fleet in today's operating environment in Europe?
Yeah, in fact, I think, we're talking since many years that this industry is on low margin and how to increase the profitability. I think this is what we're all looking for. And I think every sector, doesn't matter, in the whole supply chain tries to optimize processes, the supply chain, and to find efficiency gains to increase the bottom line. So we do, but I have seen that by all the regulation which came in over the years and years, all this efficiency gain get lost. So in terms of my team, we see that we still have to increase the manpower and resources to comply with the regulations. Although the safety records 15 years ago are basically the same as today. So all the efficiency gains are lost by additional compliance rules and regulation. And I think this is a very a symptom of Europe, in fact, that bureaucracy eats up everything, and we can work with digitization. And today the buzzword is AI. We all using it and learning and how to use, and again winning all these efficiency gains, these little things to get better, and ideally to open up to the market more wider, that we really democratize private jet industry. But I see the effort we all as an industry, it's not just the operator, have to spend to comply with new coming rules is a pain, yeah. And I think this is very symptomatic for Europe.
Could I add something to that?
Please.
We were talking a little bit before, Bernard, about the bureaucracy, and as someone who's starting a new operator, I see it exactly as you do as well, with a huge amount of kind of a burden of bureaucracy that lies on us. But one thing I think that we could do better at as an industry is the fact that we're regulated in Germany to the same standards as Lufthansa or British Airways or any of the big airlines. I think we need to do a better job of promoting to our kind of customer base that actually there's no safety difference when you're flying on a small private jet, on a Mustang, or whether you're on an XLS or Falcon on Philippe's fleet. essentially we're all being regulated to the same standards. And I think that's a huge bonus when we're selling outwardly, especially maybe to other markets as well, to the United States or to Asia. You're saying the European market is very heavily regulated, but we should use that to our advantage and say, look at our safety standards. They are way over the top potentially. However, because we have to hold to those, it could be a very powerful sales tool.
So we're talking about regulation is advantageous in terms of supporting us to promote what's good about our industry.
I mean, I don't. It's no fun to work with that level of bureaucracy. That's something we know. But I definitely think that it gives us the opportunity to really show our professionalism as an industry. And I think we've always struggled to get away from the idea that we're very small compared to commercial aviation. But I think we should always continue that kind of push, that charge towards showing just how commercialized and professional we are as an industry, and that our standards are exactly the same as any airline that you would fly with on a 747 from Washington to Frankfurt.
So Gabriel, you're a little bit like me. Your sort of charter reach is not just here in Europe. So tell me how your experience here in Europe is different to maybe elsewhere in the world where you work.
I think I have to agree a lot with Algie. Communication is key. I don't think we are actually portraying what the efforts are done as an industry. Safety, security, and service is something that we definitely need to share more with our customers. And unfortunately, it comes down, whenever you're just trying to broker a deal, it comes down to margins. And that's all the effort and the energy that you put and the passion is just lost for $100. That's not fair for anybody.
Well, this is very true. So have we got to a point now where we're commoditizing so much that we're allowing clients to push our buttons on price? We have big fleet consolidations bringing down price, and therefore meaning it's harder for quality operators, maybe like Philippe and Algie as a new operator. You've been through the process. You've been swallowed up into a big consolidated model. You've come out the other side, and you're starting again. How different is the landscape for you now?
I mean, on one side, consolidation is just a part of aviation, and lots of people actually made a really good point, which is, we can all hark after the days of Pan Am or Dan Air or whatever, but aviation moves on. It always moves forward. So I don't necessarily see it as a particularly bad thing, but obviously when something like a company gets taken over that's occupying a very central space in the charter sphere, and the new owners of the company decide to move it towards a different direction, let's say more into fractional or more into program, it then obviously creates, at least for a short period of time, a vacuum anyway. And that was a very interesting element for what we were looking at, is who can really represent that key, that core central charter element, which is just focused on broker, customer, but dealing with the customers as brokers. And the brokers are outward facing, and the operator is the one facing the brokers, and just servicing that market. I know that lots of people do it, and they have fleets that do it, but still, it was our view that there was a kind of space to continue that really close operation and keeping it outside of the program sphere.
See, those are the good old days of aviation I yearn for, are the good old days when you could pick up the phone, talk to a person, somebody knew the trip that you were talking about, and somebody understood your problems. And the ability to resolve problems and deal with conflict and everything was so much easier. Glenn, as CEO of the Air Charter Association, and my colleague in that regard, tell me a little bit more about the kind of issues that we're facing as an association and the complaints and concerns that people bring to the association and look for assistance with.
Yeah, I think we have certainly seen an uptake in issues that are raised by members where they're looking for support in negotiating problematic situations and helping to resolve those problems. Now, obviously, we can't always find those solutions, but we can often help people to just take some of the sensitivity and personality out of the conversation to actually say, well, that went wrong. You've got to now work together to resolve that. And I suppose connectivity is one of the things that we can help certainly our member companies, but quite often it's one of our member companies with somebody who's not one of our member companies, and they've got into some sort of a difficulty in the deal. And yeah, I think we've seen an increasing number of those definitely coming into us and asking for support over the last.
So there's more pain in the transaction. I think that's kind of what we're saying here. There's a lot more pushback.
Yeah, I think there is. I think that the complexity of, certainly on the operational side, seems to have increased in more recent years. be it permits, be it licensing, the number of issues that operators and brokers have got to sort of deal with on an individual flight has increased. And that increases the complexity and therefore increases the amount of chance that something's going to go wrong and cause problems for everybody. So I think that is a result of legislation changes. Dare I mention the word Brexit, post-Brexit.
There it is.
UK, got to say it sometime.
Stop the clock.
That has made operations more complex, and as a result, we're seeing more issues off the back of that.
Do we think that it's harder for clients now to do what they want? I mean, the whole notion of business aviation is it's meant to be agile. Frankly, I've had flight experiences last year where my passengers would have been better on Ryanair because they'd have actually got a slot, you know. And to me, this is everything that we're supposed to be offering to our clients: flexibility, the ability to go when you want, go to airports that you want. And, you know, we've had to actually cancel flights where we can't get a matching pair of slots. So if you want to make a 2-hour sector a 7.5-hour sector for fun, you know, feel free. That's pretty much the only way you're going to land at certain airports in the middle of summer. So what can we do here to educate our clients about that without effectively telling them how terrible business aviation has at times become? I'm going to put that one to Bernard first of all, because with a fleet of your size, you must have had some real slot headaches, for example, and airport access headaches.
Yeah, it's in fact you're totally right. It's a hustle, but I see it more from a helicopter point of view, and I think this is what we are facing in every industry, and in particular in aviation as well, or business aviation. That demographics is a beast. You know, we're running out of stuff. I think all the bureaucratic burdens stopping us to use more and more digitization, and we can't cope with all the issues coming up. I think overall it's a shortage of stuff, and my point of view is that post-pandemic we have not recovered in aviation at all. Yeah, so not just private aviation, but you see at the airports security lines. When I came here to London Sunday, you think I flew out of Munich, that you know, it shouldn't be easy and simple, and I was queuing up at the security line for 2 hours on a Sunday, where I thought, you know, it takes me maybe 10 minutes. Luckily, it was early enough. And then I asked the duty manager there, what's the situation? And he said, simply shortage of staff. It's not even sick leave or holidays or whatever, it's shortage of staff. And we're facing this in all segments of the aviation industry. And I think we have not recovered. And again, demographics is a beast. Every day, more people are retiring rather than joining the workforce, and we can't cope to catch up with digitization, with efficiency gains. So I think it needs a fundamental mentality change in many ways, that we can provide the service we want. You know, we call ourselves a premium luxury provider, where our industry serves, you know, a certain clientele who are demanding, and I totally understand if you pay that amount of money, doesn't matter which type of aircraft you're flying, but you deserve to be, you know. And I think if you look back the last few years, the level of service quality has really gone down by slots and so on and so forth. And of course, if you have a long-time customer, he doesn't understand why. And you can explain the whole situation as we're discussing right now, but unlikely he has an understanding for that. Another thing what I see is that Gen Z and Gen Y particular really want to use our service, also the industry service, digital. We see there's a huge push and pressure. I see as well for my kids, you know, they're really digital nerds. Every information they have and everything they use goes via, I don't know, TikTok and Instagram. And when it comes to private flying, and we're talking to these 25 plus and 30 guys, they say, well, I want everything digital. This generation is really shy to talk on the phone. I mean, we're used, you know, pick the phone and have a good relation with your customer. But I see this Gen Y and Gen Z are really shy. You know, so send me a message, make it digital. And what I feel, our industry is not ready. I mean, we have heard Oliver, they are pushing a lot forward, that we are getting there. But unfortunately, the industry is so small, our niche is so small. the margins are so small that there's not enough money to really digitize the sector.
I just want to add to that, for instance, digitalization for me is more towards training the team. If you actually have a way to manage the expectations of the client, whether it's a Gen Z or a new guy, whatever that is, and then that new broker, that new member knows how to manage that customer, that really changed because they will communicate each other via TikTok, Instagram, between them, and then you just have to put the platform there so that they can communicate with each other. So from my side, it's that training, that digitization and those tools to train your staff. That's kind of like what I see on our side.
I mean, I want to add one thing is as well, I think as Europe, we have to really step back and see how can we be competitive against US and in Asia, and we're still fighting national borders and so on and so forth. And when it comes to slots, as you just mentioned, and if you really dig deep, it comes down, yeah, there are military zones and then national borders, and we cannot optimize the airspace. I mean, you have here, Max, I mean, you know that we can optimize a lot of things by using smart algorithms and AI, but simply national interests stopping us, yeah, and this is crazy.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we're all thinking that AI is the threat to our industry, but actually, it's just about access and airspace. If you look at the USA, which is a massively mature market, there's an acceptance there that business aviation is a positive thing. Every airport has 3 or 4 runways. Every city has 3 or 4 airports. Every business aviation airport has 3 or 4 FBOs, and the service there is superb, and there's no issue with slots. And of course, you're not flying over 30-odd nation states. You're just flying in a country that recognizes the value of business aviation. Philippe, do you think we've moved away from appreciating the value of business aviation in Europe? Are we just the bad guys now?
I think 30 years ago, every aircraft was flying half or 1/3 what they're flying now. So the situation was very different. There were less clients, less aircraft. And nowadays, you need to work very closely with all the stakeholders. So you need everybody in the industry, and this is gathering that's very useful for that. You need to work with the FBOs, you need to work with the catering providers, the fuel provider, with everybody. Because if everybody works constructively, we save a lot of time. But generally, when you think about it, you have to wait taxiing. Why are we all taxiing? Thank you. We create pollution this way. We could make things a lot easier in terms of infrastructure. So I think really it's for someone who wants, as I said, just a lift from A to B, he still wants his lift on time, as you said. And for the one who wants the plane to stay, yes, we need to find parking. So you have logistical problems, yeah? But I think everybody can work together toward that. That's a step we have to face. You know this is not like before. You know the service is not what it used to be. So you need to anticipate, work around it. It's not going to change. It's going to get worse. So we got to find solutions for that. Together, everyone. That's how it works, I think. That's how I see it.
I was going to say, I think you raise a very important point as far as the value of business aviation. And I think that's where, as an industry, we fail to highlight the value of business aviation to the right people. And that is to the governments, to the people that can that regulate and impact on our industry. There's a very low level of understanding in those circles of the value that business aviation provides. And I think it's our responsibility as an industry to actually start increasing the amount of information we're pushing out from our sort of normal PR and marketing, less about the luxury private jets flying off to holiday destinations, which obviously is the #1 hit on social media for our industry, more into the what is a majority of our flying doing when we're flying business flights. We are a catalyst for innovation, investment, gross domestic product for countries. It's foreign investment. Business aviation is the connectivity that allows that to happen. And without it, countries will not grow. And that's, at the moment, that's a fundamental problem for a lot of countries, particularly around Europe and around the world. And impacting on business aviation is going to negatively impact on that growth that everyone wants. So we need to start looking at the messaging that we send out as an industry and actually send out the right messages, focusing on the crucial services that we provide as an industry on the business, travel, connectivity side.
But we're also surely slightly hamstrung by the anti-aviation lobby as a whole. You know, if we need more access to airports for private jets, we need more airport capacity. In some cases, that means building additional runways, and that's obviously going to be shot down by the environmentalists as well. So without denigrating the efforts of the positivity of earlier, where we're all feeling wonderfully positive about business aviation, you could go completely doomed the other way and say, is this the end of business aviation in Europe? Are we being squeezed out of all the airports because Bernard's lovely Mustang takes 2 people to the airport and, you know, in comes a Transavia 737 with 180 people looking to buy booze and fags in the duty-free?
But the answer to that is connectivity. So if you look at the connectivity between city pairs, and I don't know if Richard's in the audience, but from Winx did some data for us recently on a bit of work we were doing for the UK government, and I think it was, I can't remember the exact numbers, I won't even try, but 50% of the city pairs served out of the UK are only served by business aviation. So 800 city pairs, 400 of them are only business aviation served. So if that is the case, how are people going to connect to those places if business aviation isn't there to provide that service? And again, another stat that we looked at was about, I think it was 81% of flights outside of London go out of airports under 3 million passengers a year. So those smaller regional airports, so business aviation flights, 81% of them are flying from smaller regional airports around the countries, which is a result of, or results in regional investment, regional funding and economies growing, not outside of the big capital cities. So we allow that to happen because we are designed to fly into those smaller airports.
Many of those who lost their
can't do that.
connectivity over the COVID years, etc., as those airports
Absolutely.
closed and regional air services as schedules were ceased.
And schedules still haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels. So they are, all the main lucrative routes are back up and running, but some of the smaller regional flying has never returned.
This is very true. I'm just seeing some of the questions here, actually. Do we see strategic partnerships and collaboration between competitors as a solution for the European air future? I'm going to put that one to you, Algie.
I've always been quite big on the idea of collaboration. I remember during my time at Air Hamburg, I often got up onto the stage at an ACRA award and sort of said that I think the general vibe is a little bit negative, and I'd like to sort of say I'm really excited for the future that we have as an industry. I think, exactly as Philippe was saying, everyone working together on these problems, they're not going to all immediately overnight get solved, but I definitely think that operators who are willing to collaborate with each other, even optimize their schedules between operators, it's a tough topic, but it can be done. I think there's definitely opportunities where people collaborate. You know, you raise the tide together, everyone raises up. Obviously, maybe you do a trip or I do a trip, I do one of your trips, you do one of my trips. But essentially, in doing that, maybe you can optimize the fleet, you can optimize the amount of hours you fly, you can reduce the slot demand because you're not getting 2 aircraft that are flying to the same airport and demanding 2 slots. Instead, you know, one's ferrying out. Maybe you can combine your schedules. It's maybe a bit utopian to think of that, but I think given that we always end up sitting in the same rooms together, we always meet each other over, whether it's in the Duke in Geneva or whether we're sitting on a sofa here in the Landmark Hotel in London, I think there definitely is something to be said for collaborating together to really push things forward and improve let's stop complaining about the issues that are inevitably going to be on our industry and actually start working together in terms of, you know, improving our own lives. Even if regulators aren't going to improve our lives, we can definitely work together to do it.
That's very interesting as well, because if you look back since the B word and the permitting issues we have, actually that is a massive anti-environmental move right there, because if you need an airplane in the weekend in the UK to get from one end of the UK to the other, you know, I could have one of Bernard's airplanes sat there transient and I can't use it for that. So, you know, actually our regulators also losing sight of the fact that we're not able to use capacity that's sat under our noses. And, you know, that fleet optimization thing is actually much better for our environment also. There we go. These challenges are always sent to try us. Gabriel, you obviously have an operation that, you know, operates in other territories, traditionally some very challenging territories, such as Mexico. We're collaborating on something together like that at the moment, actually. But how do you find some of these more developing territories and their attitude to aviation versus what you're dealing with when you're operating here in Europe?
I am also a big believer in collaboration, and that's kind of like the cornerstone of our company. You know, trying to help a European operator trying to go into Middle East, Asia, or Africa, or in this case, going to Latin America and trying to, you know, manage or navigate different languages in different regions or continents. So I do think that that's key, standardization of contracts and standardization of policies. It's something that we can work together as an industry. And again, you know, trying to solve this way of raising margins altogether for making a better future for all of us. And then at the end of the day, we're serving that 1% of population that definitely requires our help to optimize even their schedules and be more cost effective as a company.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking at Oliver's question here as well. Goodness me. I could put this to every one of the panel. If you had a magic wand to make one wish that would supercharge the growth of our industry in Europe, what would you wish for and why? Bernard, apart from your own personal TikTok channel, what is it that you want for your future?
Yeah, for me, that's for sure one thing. Thank you, Oliver, for these questions. Remove the national borders, really. Remove the national borders, become one Europe, and see us as a region, as a strong economic region, and having one target that we're in competition with other regions and make Europe great again.
We lost them in Austria. Didn't go that well.
Yeah, go on. I'm going to work my way along the couch then. Philippe, what would be your little supercharge for our industry?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it needs to be seen on the European or pan-European. I mean, you have the slot here, you have the slot there, you have the weight, you have this. It just needs to be more coordinated. That's for sure. And less, unfortunately, less nationalistically minded. Because our business is to go from A to B within countries, you know. We got to have more facilities to do this.
Wow, the ability to bring all of those regulators and civil aviation authorities together to think more blue skies. Algie, what would be your superpower right now?
I might sort of bring it back a little bit to my last point, which is maybe very tedious, but I think for me, if we were able to, if everyone was able to see each other's schedules, and I know it's a hot button issue, nobody would really be willing to share what they're doing. It's not something that's realistic. But if there was a way that everyone was to understand what people call them competitors, but we all work in such a small industry that maybe if they're our partners in many ways, I think if there was a really open, and Avino's working really hard towards that as well, is kind of making it available to see where everyone's going and where everyone needs to be. But if everyone was able to understand where the flows of traffic were a little better, and how they can collaborate with their partners, maybe to make the actual entire operation more efficient. Maybe that would be my magic wand, but it would be very magic because it involves inherently reducing people's competitiveness. And with this many blokes in one industry, that's not going to be that easy.
Some kind of integration of Avinode and Eurocontrol, maybe. Small idea, Oliver, if you're taking notes. Gabriel.
I also would go back to standardization of contracts. Different industries have managed to standardize margins, and then that allows the operator and the broker to concentrate on service security and just allow that different trend or different flow of the operation altogether. So then that opens the door for collaboration. There's no hidden margins. There's no, hidden stuff that is not transparent. So I definitely see that Europe can set the benchmark for that. I mean, I think in different regions, they all look up to Europe in so many different cases. So why not start here?
That would be a broker's dream, would it not? And I believe they have this in the yachting world, don't they? I think the yacht charter world works on a standard margin, and then it becomes the service that's the standout feature. I think if we roll back to the rest of the questions, if we may, there was something there about, what was that? How do you build relationships with retail customers that want everything digital? You cannot build a relationship unless you truly know your customer, unless you talk. I mean, for me, this question goes in 3, 4, and 5 dimensions. This is not just about being able to talk to our customers. This is being able to talk to our suppliers. This is being able to get young people to pick up the phone. This is all about communication. Have we lost the ability to communicate? And I'm going to start with you, Glenn, because apart from the fact that he's trying to suppress a coughing fit and is struggling to communicate in the moment, think about what the ACA is doing in terms of training, etc. How's communication on the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we clearly cover in our training courses for brokers, that you've got to pick up the phone and you've got to talk to people. It's part of the fundamental, gaining an understanding of what your customer wants is where the process starts. And unless you're actually picking up the phone and having a conversation with them, and you can, okay, yeah, you could send 15 different WhatsApp messages to your customer asking them for every single little detail. But
You employed that person as 2 then, right?
well, yeah. I know that's a strong desire that it seems in a modern world, younger people don't want to talk to people on the phone. The phone is not a voice communication tool in the same way as it used to be. It's now a digital messaging tool, whereas you can't get the same level of information if you do that. You don't find out that they actually don't want to travel from that airport, but they just think that's the nearest airport that they can travel from. You don't find out that their grand's just died and they're traveling for the funeral, so you can't customize the service on board the flight. So if you got to have that communication and that conversation right at the beginning, and if nothing else, that's how you build a relationship. A WhatsApp message doesn't build a relationship with someone.
Absolutely. We're operating at the very top end of customer service here, and it's human relationships at the heart of that.
It's very old-fashioned, but it's proven.
I've turned into that old bag in my yearning for conversations with people, I must admit. Philippe, your view on that? How do we lead the way in communication?
I think you have to accept the way communication is, whichever way. But at the end of the day, it's correct. You need information in order to solve a problem. For me, a flight, okay, that's the problem, that's the equation, how we sort this one out. But somehow you need to know the client. So whichever way you can build a relationship, and the more information you have, the more precise you are. So he's going to be more happy with this.
Bernard, I know you're a very big promoter of technology. Gabe, also, you speak very much, very positively about digitization and tech. We've discussed with Algie some ideas for how we might use that to optimize. But do you still think that we can reach our customers properly and engage with our customers properly through digitization?
I think we build relations with our style, old school, but now it's time to build also with the next generation's digital relations. I think there's no difference. I think, the younger generation, Gen Y, Gen Z, they have not been trained to talk and to pick the phone. It's not existing. So that's why we need a bit of a shift. That means we have to build digital relations. I met the other day a person, he purchased a jet for himself, and he goes to Steve. And I asked why. I said, this guy is great, he's digital, he's online, he has, social media, and said, did you talk to him? No, we're just texting via Instagram, and that's it, and he's great.
And so I gave him $50 million, and he bought me a Gulfstream.
You build digital relations. They're working differently, yeah. And obviously, we have also customers where you have a very personal, a very close relation. But we have to accept that the next users are coming into the market who are purely accepting a digital relation, and this is what we have to build. Of course, it's not easy because we have different channels now, but this is what it is. And yeah.
Gabe, your view on tech and how we keep people engaged?
I think it goes back to training our own team. When we onboard somebody, sometimes we have to train them how to have a proper conversation and not to be transactional and just move into WhatsApp or Instagram and just, when are you flying? When are you flying? You know, it's more about developing that relationship and educating the customers. Yes, perhaps the channels or feeds are different, so perhaps you need to explain more about why slots are complicated or there's AOGs or something on YouTube channel or on Instagram for 30 seconds. But then it's also educating our own team, and that's our responsibility.
Fair enough. Our clock's down. Does that mean we're done? Because it feels like it's gone ever so quickly. Do we have time to answer Diego's question that I've only just seen and I think is a corker? Okay. I think, you know, Diego's question is actually why we're all here. Because, you know, if Charter is the little bit above the water in terms of the iceberg and the ownership and everything and pleasing everyone else is below the waterline, do all of our clients have the same sort of expectations? So you're shaking your head, Bernard.
I think there's no difference. If someone flies on a private jet, even if he owns it or is an owner pilot, he wants to get efficiently from A to B and seamlessly as possible. And then you have a certain service industry around making this possible. And of course, there are little differences here and there, but at the end of the day, it's getting efficiently, seamlessly from A to B. This is what our industry is about.
Well, for me, that's it in a nutshell. Do any of you, rest of you, have anything to add?
I'm smiling at the question because I'm thinking about two situations. The owner is calling you, telling you, I'm on my way to the airport, yeah? And the charter customer, it happened to us in the past, I'm on my way in the airport, but he had not booked a plane yet. So I think they're all in a hurry to go. The rest is for us to sort it out, yeah? But the situation is exactly the same, the mindset.
Exactly. Well, you know, the charter is a vital part of the aircraft ownership and management ecosystem, to use another one of those buzzwords. I've been trying to think of a better word than that because I don't like using buzzwords and I can't. So I think all of us up here would say we're very grateful for the fact that charter is a part of this world and we're grateful for our inclusion in CJI. So on behalf of my wonderful panel here, thank you all very much.
Thank you.